Welcome to this Perceptive Readers Podcast. Hi, I'm James Lynch. An elaboration on the beautiful sound of healing and, yes, positions of trust. Hi, I'm James Lynch, and this is a PocbooksCrypto update moment. This PocbooksCrypto update moment will be a little bit longer than normal. It could actually be a Perceptive Readers. But I really want to make myself clear on a matter, and there's a lot that goes into why this discussion is being made on a Sunday, which some of you are used to actually taking more serious subjects, more straight to the point subjects, so that you will be clear in your understanding. This is one of them. And this is also important more for the sake of understanding the discussions that we have all the time among love, mercy, consideration, and dignity. All right. In this case, it'll be all wrapped up in a position of trust. Now, be aware in this discussion on a position of trust, keep in mind there was once a Perceptive Readers that I did, and it was on the beautiful sound of healing, and also it dealt with the sanctuary, and it mentioned how the persons are in such a state, and this is what we're going to elaborate on, are in such a state that they have this frame of mind where they can not only be healed themselves in a sense, but they are also able to heal others to the state that anybody who has an ailment or are hurting in some way, they know that they can go there. And so they won't be part of the rat race of life. Some people even say, hey, a player, in the game of life, but they can go somewhere that will be outside of the game to get the what? The rest and the recuperation that they so direly need. Okay, keep that in mind as we elaborate, because a discussion that has come up from time to time with one man of experience, and he had this discussion with more than one person at a time, throughout his career. Okay. And these type of discussions have to come up, periodically, because what? Humans are not infallible. Humans can make mistakes, and sometimes even the position that they have been placed in, there comes moments where you have to see whether the person still has the freeness of speech as before that they had, or whether the person is even capable of doing the job anymore, or is it something, again, that with a little bit of tweaking, with a little bit of, discussion or what have you, and being informed or even disciplined in some matters, they'll be right back, able to be in this position or that position. Now, before we get into position of trust, what is a position of trust? There is a understanding or lack of, at times, of what a position of trust is. And in the simplest way of understanding a position of trust, it is a role of responsibility, really any role of responsibility, where you are in charge of taking care of and nurturing this person's physical, emotional, and even mental health. So in other words, you're really taking the oath that you will never do any harm on purpose. Being in a position of trust, there's also certain leeway or liberties that you would just say you will never really take in this type of role anymore because of the harm that it could actually cause. For example, let me ask you, is a professional football player in a position of trust? No. Is a professional musician in a position of trust? No. What about an entertainer? What about an artist? No. Now, this doesn't mean that if they don't all of a sudden go into a role where they're also an artist and maybe a doctorate or something of that nature too, that, hey, all right, now you are in a position of trust. But see, in general, even though persons may look up to some of these ones in these different occupations, it doesn't mean that they are in a position of trust. Even if you say, hey, you're a role model, it still doesn't mean that they're in a position of trust or held to that high regard, or even should be held in that high standard at times. Okay, does this make sense? So I have a example that I want to use. For example, what if all of a sudden you're finding a person who just seems to be immature, and it's obvious that they got something against somebody. And see, we're all human. Remember, we can have certain people that we just don't care too much for, right? But are we mature enough to still say, well, you know what? If I have this crop over here and this person comes and they work for me, I'm going to make sure I dignify them and give them their wage that they earned. I'm not going to withhold it back to them from them because of some idiosyncrasy or something that I don't like about them. You see what I'm saying? So the point is that person mature enough to keep separate that, okay, I have to give dignity to all humans. I have to dignify all humans in a respectful manner. I have to greet them in this way or what have you. They come to me or what have you. Or at times, again, does the immaturity has a tendency to take over where they're playing on personal preferences and idiosyncrasies that they have, or they may have against another person, they can't separate. So they end up treating them in a very terrible manner, you see. Remember, persons in positions of trust don't have the liberty to do such things. So here is an example. See, a person in a position of trust, as I mentioned, they do not have the leeway, the liberty, or leverage to abuse their position or power. See, a position of trust is on a different elevated level. Yes, it is. So much so that I'll explain that to you in a few moments. But for example, where we talked about immaturity, something that, boy, we would rarely see and never made it be so. But what if a nurse had played head games with giving you your medicine? Is a nurse in a position of trust? Yes, she is. And no one is saying that she or he that's in that role would, do that or what have you on a rare occasion. But if something like that ever did happen, couldn't you see why all of a sudden persons would call into questions, do you want this job? Are you even qualified to do this job? Because now, on the level of what you've lost your freedom of speech, even on the level of malpractice, this is why sometimes, as you see, you find persons just not able to fulfill that role anymore. Okay, same thing for a doctor. See, what about a doctor who knows everything about you? He would not, in confidentiality, you see, tell your business to anyone. Well, what if a doctor does? What if he knows of an ailment that you have or that you're suffering with, but he won't tell you? But then imagine when this doctor is hanging out with the boys or girls at the country club, they discuss all your personal business. And it's hilarious, or hilarity, that they'll discuss all your personal business with these ones, your business out in the street, as we said. But then the situation becomes even more undignified because they treat you that like you shouldn't even be privy to your own personal or private information. Isn't that something? So, would a doctor on that level be, once again, in a situation where their position of trust would certainly be questioned as to the harm that is being done and really done in a negligent way or even on purpose? You see, what you end up finding out in these type of cases is that same information that maybe that person in position of trust is using, they're using it to make friends with, quote, riches. You should hear the way the good book even describes it, making friends with unrighteous riches and unquote, and a great name for themselves at the cost still of you being treated in an undignified manner. See, things like that happen all the time throughout the world. We know that. But see, here's the point. Persons who reach out to be in those positions of trust. See, you will find that even lawyers, leaders, all sorts of ones fall into those types of positions. Never would they want to do something in that way against anybody, making a great name for themselves at the sacrifice of person's dignity, their livelihood, their mental emotional state. You see, you're swearing off basically never doing something like that to someone else, at least not on purpose, at least not making a practice of it. You see, people in positions of trust, and I want to emphasize this, they are not in the same level of responsibility or role as an athlete, a professional vendor, a musician, or even an entertainment. You see, people in positions of trust, they are dignified even higher, yet in a mature humility, dignified way, not a mock humility. There is a difference. And even though humans are imperfect, there have been many who have lived up to these type of positions of trust for years in a consistent manner. No one said that they didn't make a mistake at time, but that's the key. It was a mistake. It was not a prolonged practice of actually just discarding what that position entails. You see, for example, persons in positions of trust are on such an elevated level. Remember, when these professional vendors, these athletes, these musicians, these entertainers need help, they go to the sanctuary, so to speak, to receive it. They go to hospitals to receive the help. But when persons in positions of trust need help, who do they go to? Normally just one another, or they take care of themselves. You see, they are in the sanctuary. They help one another or what have you. They don't go to the athlete, the professional vendor, the musician, or the entertainment. So wanted to make sure this is kept in mind so that you will understand that, yes, we like people. Yes, we may even look up to certain persons, but be sure to always keep in mind, and sometimes some of you wonder how I think and how I wonder, that's what I keep in mind. This is not coming from a fanboy, type of explanation either. These are facts and experience that I'm sharing with you, that when it comes to these different persons in different roles that are not, in positions of trust, once again, I keep that in mind, And I don't put certain things or expect certain things that I do really expect from when I'm going to a doctor, whether it's what is it? What is that? A biology doctor? It's something else called, it's called pediatrician or what have you, or even a spiritual doctor, so to speak. It's on a different level. Persons do live up to those levels. And so keep that in mind between sanctuary, and make sure we never lump whether a person in position of trust has let you down, or whether any of these other roles, somebody in that role has let you down. Never lump one person, or should I say all, into one category because of what a few have done. Does that make sense to you? Because remember, something that you have to keep in mind, there's a difference between somebody running to do something bad or what have you, and whether they have made a mistake or been engulfed by it. You see what I'm saying? Swallowed up by it. So when you have people that has happened to, it doesn't matter whether you have 3 or 4 who just really don't care and, about whatever, how they care about themselves. That other person that may be in that group who's by themselves, they may have to associate with the situation for now, but it still does not mean that they're not doing the best that they can to also get themselves together. Okay? This is James Lynch. This has been a Pop Books Update moment. I hope this helps. I may have an article about it in the future, and because there is a bigger picture to it as well. You take care and have a wonderful, wonderful day. You have just listened to the Perceptive Readers Podcast. Remember, until next time, if you read something that encourages you to improve or enhance your life for the better, it becomes your reality.